If we turn to the topic of the webcast, service management, as I said at the beginning, this is like the cornerstone of the GBS construct. And now the chapter's broad and it covers a lot of points. But Robert, rather than list everything out, what features would you like to stress about the model as being particularly key?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Sumit, for the introduction and the passion you show. And I loved working with you on the topic as well. I think that there's probably three things I want to pull out that I think personally are my favorites within the service management chapter. Um, First is at the beginning we sort of describe the questions a GBS leader or a GBS team should ask themselves when they consider taking on a new service, whether it's worth for the GBS team or the GBS leader to take that service on. And the questions we ask there are quite simple, but I think quite useful questions. The first one is, can it scale? Can whatever operation, whatever service you want to create, can it scale? Can it be beneficial for more than just one country, one business unit, one geography? Can it be beneficial for the enterprise as a whole? So can it scale is the first question that we put. The second question that we put is, can you turn it into a service? So is it more than just an operation, a department, a team, but really can you turn it into a service where there's a clear, defined input, throughput, output customer to be identified and to be set up? So can you really turn this into a service? And the third question, of course, one of the core things that a GBS team does is can you continuously improve this activity? Can you continuously improve this service? And if the answer to those three questions, can it scale? Can you turn it into a service? And can you continuously improve it? If the answer to those three is yes, then you probably are looking at something that is worthy of being considered as a service within the GBS construct. So that's the first piece that we described, which I hope is going to be very helpful for GBS teams as they struggle with these questions, which I know all GBS teams struggle with every day, every week to say, look, what do I take on new? What do I do? On the back of that, we also described in the chapter, which again I hope is going to be helpful, quite an elaborate and one could even say exhaustive list of services and solutions that Sumit and I are now seeing in the market are being offered from within the GBS construct. Very long list, very complete, I think. Again, which I hope will be helpful for teams to look at and say, hey, I didn't know that could be done as well. And let me think about it. Let me think about what that could mean within my enterprise and within my company. And then the last piece, which I think comes throughout the book per se, is this notion of whatever you do in GBS has to be in service of the enterprise strategy, in service of making your company successful. That's the essence of why GBS exists. And the same goes for service management, the service scope. So when you pick a service scope, you gotta look at scope options that actually strengthen the implementation of your enterprise strategy. And of course, that has to do with the maturity of your team, has to do with the industry you're in very much. I mean, Sumit, working in the retail industry, I've got a pharma industry background. It's different. So there's different services that are relevant in those different industries. So let's be clear about that. Let's be honest about that. Let's not try and paint everything black and white. There's many colors of scope you can have within a GBS construct. And so that relevance, that industry relevance, that enterprise relevance is also a key element that I would pull out. Now there's a lot more, and I'm sure in the next couple of minutes we're going to talk about a lot more, but these are the ones that I want to pull out at the beginning.
So, look, the way I think about service management is I think about it as a CEO model. Service management is the brilliant basics. It gives us the right and seat on the table and the continuous seat on the table to do something exciting, which is about value creation. If you don't do your brilliant basics right, deliver your service, then I'm sorry, then you don't have the right to do anything. And you can serve, you can work with the organization in three ways. For me, one is about how a GBS are in service of, how a GBS can partner on certain things to create value, and there are certain things GBS should lead to create shareholder value. So these are the three buckets. And the CEO of the first bucket, which is of service to the organization, is a service management framework. So I call it the CEO model. They are the relationship managers. They should be working very closely with the markets and functions to understand what are their strategic drivers, what are they thriving on, what are their objectives, and how do we connect the business with their objectives, along with the your head of the function, etc., who are working. So how do we work? Second, how do they have an independent voice on the table in terms of the performance standards that is expected? Because what you don't want is the headmaster marking his own homework. You almost want somebody to be independent and agnostic in terms of how the market and functions are feeling for the services that you deliver to. And then how do you bring in the right capability around GBS, whether it's the CI, the processor engineers, whether it's your RPA specialist or AI engineers, to come in and help and drive the right level of transformation that is required in the function. And finally, they should be the custodians of end-to-end measurement of your KPIs and SLAs. So rather than, obviously you're independently reporting, but also how are you the custodians of the end-to-end performance? Do you understand what input you need from the market to do your job better? If you're owning something end-to-end, and I always say this, that a GBS organization can't have a watermelon syndrome where the business is red and you are green. So you need to make sure that it's consistent in measuring the whole end to end. That becomes a really important piece. And then normally things will go wrong. And when things go wrong, are you getting an independent, agnostic view to understand what has gone wrong and what action plan do you need to place and track to understand? And finally, the most important piece is preempt and really understand the risks associated, especially what's going on around the world with all the headwinds. Do you understand the risk of your financial P&L? Do you understand the risk from a compliance and governance perspective? Do you understand on risk in terms of our colleagues? Do you understand the risk associated with delivering the outcome that we want to achieve? So how do they, as a CEO, understand all of these different facets of delivering a service and bringing the right teams in, like a typically CEO would do, to solve for the problem that we need to solve? That's how I see service management.
That's both of you gave, I mean, extremely clear definitions of this thing, and I'm going to play my colleagues some of those things you just said, Sumit, because it's such a clear explanation of why service management is at the heart of the GBS construct.